ต้อนรับท่านแรกค่ะน้องวริศลือวณิชพันธ์เชิญเลยนะคะฝ่ายเสนอท่านที่2ต้อนรับน้องปัณวิทย์คัชวุฒิปัญญานะคะและตามด้วยท่านที่3ฝ่ายเสนอคุณสกุลพัฒน์เอี่ยมเสมอแต่ด้วยฝ่ายค้านวันนี้มี2ท่านอาจต้องมีคนหนึ่งโต้2ครั้งนะคะท่านแรกต้อนรับฝ่ายค้านคุณพิพัฒน์นามสกุลอะไรนะอ่านว่าอะไรนะของเรานพภาคเหรอ ใช่ไหมพี่อ้นอ่านถูกไหมลูกพิพัฒน์นพภาคและน้องอาชิตะจันทรประภาสนะคะและแน่นอนค่ะผู้จัดการทีมแล้วก็เป็นเมนทอร์ด้วยเป็นพี่เลี้ยงด้วยเป็นเทรนเนอร์เป็นโค้ชด้วยนะคะต้อนรับน้องทานนิรุตติจารุไพศาลกิจค่ะซึ่งชั่วโมงนี้นะคะเรามอบให้กับน้องทามทักทายอธิบายให้กับผู้ชมได้ฟังกันด้วยสำหรับครั้งนี้เชิญค่ะ
สวัสดีครับทุกท่านผมนิรุตติจารุไพศาลกิจหรือไทม์นะครับเป็นผู้จัดการทีมโต้สารวาทีภาษาอังกฤษทีมชาติไทยหรือ Thailand National Debate Team ครับทีมนี้เป็นการรวมตัวของนักเรียนมัธยมจากทั่วประเทศนะครับวันนี้เรามีจากโรงเรียนเตรียมอุดมศึกษาและโรงเรียนสาธิตมศว.ปทุมวันครับทุกคนได้ผ่านการคัดเลือกมาอย่างเข้มข้นเพื่อเป็นตัวแทนหรือว่าที่ตัวแทนประเทศไทยในการแข่งขัน World School Debating Championship หรือที่เรียกได้ว่าเป็นเวทีที่นับเป็นโอลิมปิกของการโต้สารวาทีครับก่อนจะเริ่มผมขออธิบายกติกาสั้นๆสักครู่นะครับผู้พูดแต่ละท่านจะมีเวลา8นาทีโดยจะสลับกันพูดระหว่างฝ่ายเสนอและฝ่ายค้านครับระหว่างการพูดคู่แข่งสามารถลุกขึ้นถามคำถามได้โดยสามารถทำได้ในเวลาที่1นาทีถึง7นาทีนะครับการถามคำถามนั้นผู้ที่ลุกขึ้นถามจะต้องพูดคำว่า point of information point หรือ POI เพื่อเป็นการขอถามคำถามครับผู้พูดสามารถเลือกที่จะรับหรือปฏิเสธคำถามนั้นก็ได้แต่โดยทั่วไปเราจะแนะนำให้รับสัก1คำถามเพราะมีผลต่อคะแนนครับวันนี้น้องๆจะมาจำลองการโต้สารวาทีหรือที่เรียกว่า exhibition debate ในหัวข้อ This House welcome the rise of AI in the workplaceกล่าวคือเรายินดีต้อนรับมากๆให้ AI เนี่ยมาทำงานในกระบวนการทำงานไม่ว่าจะเป็นอุตสาหกรรมหรือในเชิงบริษัทนะครับเพื่อไม่ให้เป็นการเสียเวลาขอเสียงตบมือให้กับนักโต้วาทีทั้ง5คนครับ Without further ado I would like to invite the first proposition to open today's debate here
Hello, okay. Ladies and gentlemen, every single leap by humanity is driven by technology. But every time before you take the step, there has been fear. This time is no different. This time, our leap is in AI. This house welcomes the rise of AI in the workforce. AI is just some intelligent programs that we are trying to improve our workforce and our society as a whole. So our purpose in using AI in the workforce is that we are increasing productivity of our society. So at the end of the day, we're trying to use AI to increase productivity, to get more wealth, and to get better lives for society as a whole. And it's not just reckless usage everywhere. We're using it to improve the workforce, improve its capabilities, and ensuring that the economy can continue to grow, society can continue to grow with regulations and control, ensuring that we have an effective transition and a harmless transition to an AI-influenced economy. So some interesting points here is that first that we are in control of AI. We can choose what to implement and where to implement and how to implement AI. We can choose to implement AI in this sector of economy or this sector of economy. It's not just we are letting AI take over our earth or our society. It's that we are using AI and using its capabilities to ensure that we get better productivity. And it's not just we are firing everyone and using AI to do everything. We are using AI to improve humans. And at its core, it's just a machine and tool that we are used to trying to improve society. And we have regulations to control that this AI will actually benefits us and will not just destroy society. Okay, why would regulations happen? Because one, the states have incentives to ensure that AI regulation will happen, and two, political capital will have the incentive to ensure that the AI will not take over the earth. Okay, so when states see that there is this new tool appearing, a new tool with huge potential and huge risk, potential to improve the economies, potential to improve the entire state, potential to revolutionize their place on the world stage, they see these new tools and they want to use it and want to take its capabilities to improve the state. So it's a matter of national growth and national stability for the states to care about AI, to care about how we use it and how it will be used. And another point is that the AI is a very scary thing to a lot of people. Some people are scared that it will take their jobs. Some people are scared that it will make the way of living gone. But an interesting point here is that a lot of jobs that perceive threats from AI is that are white-collar jobs, jobs that have a lot of intellectual capabilities and a lot of wealth. So what does this look like? It looks like consultation companies, financial institutions, or maybe lawyers. And these people, they see that AI has the capability to replace them, to do things that they have already done and maybe replace them as a whole in the workforce. So they have the political campaign, the political capital to ensure that we have good regulations for this AI. So what do these good regulations look like, and what will it look like in real life? So some things that already have been done in real life, such as the EU AI Act, which is ensuring that AI is actually used to benefit us. So what does this look like? It looks like AI transparency. So we can see how the AI thinks, what the AI does, maybe why did it do this decision? We have thinking logs to ensure that it will not go rogue and AI will be under our control. We have accountability laws. Maybe a company has used AI and the AI has done harmful things. Accountability laws ensures that someone will be responsible and it won't be just a state of lawlessness and AI will just do anything it wants. Another thing is that data privacy and protection. And regulation will happen to do all of these things because the states are scared of AI and they want to use AI. So these will regulations to ensure that AI will actually be able to use inside society and there will be no significant backlash. Another one last interesting point and most important point is that human oversight will be required because look at the EU AI Act and every single AI Act in the world, they require human oversight where humans are in the loop and there is no AI takeover of the world. So our main argument here is that AI increases productivity of society as a whole and therefore increasing wealth and increasing better working conditions and increasing standards of living. So how does AI increase productivity? One, it allows less time to be spent on a task. So therefore, a single hour of work can be translated to a lot more productivity, a lot more tasks done. So maybe instead of writing emails for an hour or doing docs and menial tasks for a long time, you can use AI to do it in a few minutes. So McKinsey has made a study and found that AI can reduce time to do a task by over 60 to 70% in routine business tasks. And it's also, another thing is that we don't have to use human labor and capital for everything. AI can be used for maybe agricultural manufacturing where for example, in Netherlands where you can sort potatoes and sort tomatoes and ensuring more efficiency in farms and in places that we do not need to use workforce to do these menial tasks. So this allows the workforce to do more productive things like creating innovation and other sectors of the economy. And some parts of jobs, AI is simply better and we can ensure that there is more efficiency in these jobs. Another thing is that AI can help skilled labor. AI can help improve the labor and improve skill of everyone as a whole. For example, by doctors, doctors using AI to imaging tools. Studies found that they have been 11% more precise in finding tumors and finding cancers. Or maybe the lawyers can use AI to find search precedents and to find past cases so they can make better cases instead of using hours and hours to search about it. Okay, POI.
The motion calls for the rise, which means we're asking you, how do you envision the integration of AI in the future, which is going to be more rampant than the status quo?
As I've said before, AI is starting to take place in the world by increasing automation and increasing labor and increasing skills of the labor of our economy. So by doing this, the economy will be a more developed economy, allocating workforce to better working conditions and to better jobs where they can use their skills and use their labor to create more productivity in the economy as a whole, with each hour making more. Because we are using this AI to make menial tasks and low-worth jobs being done by AI, and ensuring that the people that have skills can do other things that will be productive to society. Look at the past examples of innovation like the steam engine, electricity, and computing. It's just another industrial revolution that is going to take place in our society. So to recap, there's more productivity because of automation. Less people produce more things, and there's more wealth as a whole. So with this wealth, we can use to improve our standards of living, and maybe we can have more free time and we can have GDP growth. It's just a transition of economy to a more developed state. In the past, it was agriculture to manufacturing, and now it's to services. And now, using AI, we can transition to another stage of economy. And the opposition might say that, sure, we might get growth, but we have negatives in the short terms. Maybe we can have layoffs, or maybe we have some jobs that may have we may lose some jobs. But in the long term, we are still creating more wealth around the table to share. And these people can still be reskilled, be upskilled, and use their skills in better jobs in better sectors. So issues will happen, but like the Industrial Revolution, regulation and natural evolution of society will occur. And at the end of the day, society will improve. We have more wealth to share around, and society advances. Proud to propose. Thank you.
I thank the first proposition for the speech. Next, I would like to invite the first opposition to open Ops case. Here.
Ladies and gentlemen, work is more than just a way to earn money. I think most of us here takes pride and meaning into what we do. If you go ask any doctors working in a hospital, they would say that treating patients is not a burden to them. It is not a boring job, but they would feel proud of their job because their job is saving lives. The same way that if you ask a police or a firefighter. The fact here is that what side government is trying to push us is that work is a burdenful job where everyone doesn't want to do work at all, and that the moment where we just increase productivity, the world will suddenly get better. Note the crucial flaw from their side, that they have failed to prove to us why productivity is the best end goal instead of just embracing the more humane goals like creativity, like humanity, and like compassion. That is what side opposition stands for. 3 pieces of setup before I move on into my arguments. Firstly, I think side proposition has failed to characterize what generative AI actually looks like. We tell you that even though in all of the commercial forms, it shares a few of the same qualities. Firstly is that AI takes a massive investment. You need a lot of money. You have to put a lot of training data into it. Secondly, it takes a lot of data to train and to make them perform well. Thirdly, it takes a lot of electricity to maintain all of these things. And finally, is that it requires no human oversight. That is, the way that AI is trained and why is it so powerful is that it works more than our human mind can comprehend. It has to test itself on what it can do, and so it removes our human selves out of these equations so that it's very hard for us to monitor what they're actually trying to do. Now, the problems of this is that for companies, it's very expensive and unreliable to just fully trust AI and to incorporate them into every links of the chains of production. My second piece of setup is that we've already told you in the POI that they've told us what AI is being used in the status quo, which is how AI is being used right now. We told you that the motion requires them to characterize the rise of AI. That means, what does this look like? It looks like we're just going to have things like AI commanding police and making police decisions. It looks like AI making medical decisions instead of fully qualified doctors. It means that AI is going to make things like decisions on the stock market on behalf of humans. That is what side proposition has to defend. They cannot just defend the world where we just have AI on a few of PowerPoint slides. We don't think that that is enough under their side of the house. Finally, the counterfactual that we want to push is that an alternative way is much better. If you have to spend that much money on investing AI and investing a lot of training data into it, we think a much simpler way is to just upskill and just train your own existing human workers so that they can just achieve their work more in a better working conditions. Any POIs before I move on? Okay, no response from side proposition then. So when they've told us that under their side of the house, they would just increase wealth and productivity, we tell you that this is not true. 3 layers of responses to this. Firstly, we tell you that AI is very random and it can also cause hallucinations. That is, we see many examples in the status quo when lawyers and attorneys try to use AI in their case, they just ended up making hallucinations about non-existent case, which lost the lawyer their jobs. So we tell you that it's very unlikely that they can just rely on this to increase productivity when AI itself is not reliable. But even if you don't buy that, we tell you that the fact that AI still cannot be monitored and cannot be made transparent is already dangerous in on itself. We tell you that in any forms of AI, it is formed by making one goal. That is, a doctor AI would be forced to make its goal about curing patients. A firefighter AI would have its goal on saving the most lives possible. A stock trading AI would have a goal of increasing the most amount of money. Note that in any forms of these goals, AI itself has to be surviving in order to achieve these goals. That is to say, in any forms of AI, it would have some form of self-perseverance. That is, it is willing to fight humans, to even commit things like blackmail or even attempted murder on humans in order to make itself survive so that it can achieve these goals. Now note here that I'm not talking about a hypothetical world that would happen 100 years later. Note that a lot of models like DeepSeek, ChatGPT, and Cloud has shown that it is willing to harm humans in order to achieve its goal. That is why AI is so dangerous even if it is effective. But finally, the final lines of response is that there are further harms because under their side of the house, AI is only limited to the only most privileged and the richest companies only, which means that the backbone of Thailand's economy, which is the SMEs, they have no way of accessing the AI market, they have no way of buying and training their own AI models. So under their side of the house, they're just going to increase the wealth concentration. All of the money is going to go to the richest companies, and the smallest companies on the ground and the people who work would never get to experience the joy of AI, assuming there is one. I'll take your point before I move on.
In the past, steam engines were first invented. It was unreliable and only the few had access to it. But now it's everywhere and it has improved our society. I think innovation improves society as a whole. I think AI is the same thing. Please engage.
Of course I agree. I agree that the steam engine is good, the internet is good. The problem is the steam engine and the internet does not have its own self-perseverance. It does not look to actively replace and harm humans in the process. Unlike AI, which I have already proven to you, it's going to cause a lot more problems to humans ourselves. Now on to my first argument, why life would have no meaning after the rise of AI. 3 reasons on why this is true. Firstly, we told you that people derive meaning from work. The moment where AI is used to replace humans, we can no longer appreciate things like human paintings, we can no longer appreciate things like music because AI would just replace all of these forms. Now at that point in time, I think humans were just going to be a complementary part of life of the world where humans have no meaning except just to eat food and enjoy all day. I don't think that we should support that kind of world. Second reasoning, political uprising can never happen through strikes. Note that throughout the past, even though in the times of steam revolution and even in the internet, these forms are used to commit things like revolution when the government and the state fail to uphold their duty. When the people who work for essential services goes on strike, then that moment they can require things like redress and correction by the government. Note that if AI ran by either the state or the biggest companies that lobby the state, the moment where they wrong the people now have no longer a way to demand this compensation and demand redress. That is to say, we're just going to allow authoritarian states and dictatorship to move on under their side of the house. Finally, is that labor itself is just going to hold any value. The fact that people work hard, they reward themselves because they know they've worked hard and they can spend money, their hard-earned money, to the things that they like. Note that all of this cannot happen at all under their side of the house. Now, the weighing is simple. Firstly, is that I think in any forms of life or any forms of society, we have to value the things that make us human first, not the things that can generate us money. The second weighing is that on scale, we think we win because we get so much more of the amount of workers. Now, on to my second argument on why the environment will become irreversibly damaged. Note here that firstly, AI takes a huge amount of energy which we cannot supply. There is not enough of energy in the world right now to supply this sustained use of AI. Second of all is that it's going to waste a large amount of water. And finally, it's going to waste all of rare earth materials like lithium being used to get money or silicon used to make semiconductors. So because all of these reasons, we don't want a world where humans are just tools. We want the world where humans can actually own our life. So proud to oppose.
I thank the first opposition for the speech. Next, I would like to invite the second proposition. Here.
The likely manifestation of AI is nowhere near how Ob tried to frame how this world, the rise of AI world, would look like, right? They told us two things, how our world look like, our world without doctors, our world without professional jobs, but that is not the intention of AI in the first place, right? Panel, we tell you since first that AI purpose is not here to replace, but rather to augment reality and make work easier for people, right? Panel, let it be clear that our side burden is not to defend the rise, but rather to defend the status quo when we already welcome the rise of AI in the first place. We already see, you can take a look around right now, the rise of AI is happening in the status quo. So technically, we should be defending the status quo, then improving later on. 2 points of clarification here then. Firstly, on why productivity is the end goal, right? Panel, we see two things coming from AI, right? Increase of productivity and increase of creativity. We see that with productivity increasing, jobs between people increases, people likelihood of getting a more passionate job or a more life-meaning job increases, and when productivity increases, money or the growth for the whole country increases, and therefore it is more beneficial towards the companies, the country, but also the vulnerable actor, which is the blue-collar worker, which we are also defending in our case then. But second of all here then, this has been unclear since their first speaker on how they try to claim that on their side, they will train people who have skills, but we see that they don't have this fiat at all on their side, right? We see that they cannot assume that people would be trained, people would be skilled, when it is a prerequisite to the firms to decide whether they want this type of person, but we still see that AI will still help the company or the rise no matter what, right? Before I move on, a few points of rebuttal here then. 3 questions I'd like to ask. Firstly, on the point of technology. Secondly, on AI being transparent or not. And lastly, on the meaning of life, right? On the first one then. They try to say that we should not invest in technology, but rather make what we have better. Panel, we think this idea is a very delusional idea where they try to claim that, with their word, they try to invest in the whole thing and make them better. We see this being not true because without the advance of technology, we don't see the future happening at all, right? If we are still stuck in status quo, if we're still stuck in whatever we're doing nowadays, stuck in making cars the same thing, not making electric cars, we would still be stuck in the past and not improving ourselves or not improving the world as a whole, right? They simply cannot deny that technology does not advance and technology does not make, and our side does not improve technology and make the world much, much more productive. Second layer here then, on the point of AI not being transparent, right? 2 things then, panel. Firstly, on human regulation, right? We see this actually being a good thing that AI is not transparent. Why? 2 things. Firstly, we have human regulation why we have humans doing overview. This is good because it also creates job demands. It also makes jobs more available on our side. Even if in the worst case that AI completely replaces like automated stuff or automated factory works, we still see that humans on our side still have jobs in regulating, in overseeing these AI. But second of all, we have more economically funded or easier job advances. Why? Because their job is not having to do like automated thing or factorized thing every single day now. The only thing is they only have to just check out or overview these AI, making their lives easier and making their quality of life much more better, which they cannot achieve under their side of the house. And lastly here then, on the point of life, right? We think it's untrue that life will have no meaning when AI completely, in our worst case, completely take over jobs, right? We think it's a prerequisite thing that totally depend on the person because it's totally unclear on how people totally perceive work as a meaning, right? We see them completely looking the other way. For example, they most definitely would value having roof over their head, having food to eat every single day, much more than getting out there to work every single day, right? We see jobs demands being more important, but also their quality of life when AI is integrated within their work, right? We see that their quality of life for these people will be easier and more efficient when they have AI helping them out, when they don't have to do everything on their own, and then these things, they get money, and then their life is much easier, which essentially has more meaning towards our life, right? Now, moving on to the extension about the benefits to human workers here then panel, 2 layers. Firstly, on employment resilience, and secondly, on the econ benefits, right? Panel, we think that AI, they're normally the automation target routine first, which these are already low-paying or unstable jobs, right? They're already vulnerable to layoffs or wage stagnation even without AI. We see that AI adoption, they pushes labor demand upwards into a role that rather has more creativity, has more problem-solving skills, things that machine cannot replicate. We see this being more beneficial towards the people, having them more creativity, but also their work much easier when AI is rather integrated in their work. Now, you might be asking, how do we save the vulnerable actor here then, which is the people whose life cannot rather change accordingly to AI, right? Panel, sure. We concede here then that it will take time for the transition to happen, that for the short-term impact, it is completely impossible for us to neglect that, AI will be good all of a sudden, right? We see the long-term impact being much more important when we can easily integrate them into our daily life. We see it's impossible, right, for our society to completely use AI for everything. So their counterfactual already fails. But we see when having these things integrated, for example, like from past things like storms, like engines, car example, industrial revolution, they're the same thing, right? Human is still able to work alongside with them, the same thing as AI. We see here that AI is rather an augmenter, not a replacer for these things, and their only purpose is to make their job easier. And before I move on, I'll take a point.
We're not against the use of technology at all. We're just against the use of a fully conscious AI that could have an intention to harm humans.
Even with that, we still see that you're completely neglecting the fact that AI is rather more beneficial to human workers, right? Even if we take them on their best, that they're only supporting technology in their least, we see AI being more efficient towards humans in their daily life and towards companies as a whole, right? AI coming in is not replacing, but rather augmenting and making their life easier, right? And this also creates more human-centered industries and help reshuffle the layers into better quality roles, and therefore helping the employment issue. Second point, layer then on the economic benefits, right? Panel, when AI increases productivity, firm increases their money, therefore lowering their costs. This essentially triggers a trickle-down effect. When firms adopt AI, their cost goes down, right? They lower production costs and then they lower prices, right? This is not only beneficial towards like people from their company specifically, but this directly benefit the people, the vulnerable people that does not have enough money, that does not have a lot of money in today's society. Whereas on their side of the house, this comparative does not look equal at all, right? We see them having the same status quo, where we see them having price rises, eggs rising, every single thing rising, just because humans has to do their job, just because company has to pay these labor workers that can easily be replaced by AI every single minute, right? This essentially is the key thing that we're trying to help the vulnerable actor, and they cannot do. Never been prouder to propose.
I thank the second prop for the speech. Next, I would like to invite second oppositions to continue ops case. Here.
MIT had done a research involving over 350 businesses and 350 more employees. And what they found is that obviously these companies, being companies that try to integrate AI into their use, what they found is that only 5% of them have been able to report any sort of marginal improvement in terms of profit and income gain. And so basically that leaves a whole 95% that remains completely unchanged. What we're trying to say is that the reason companies are enforcing AI, would want to implement AI into usage is not necessarily because they're always better. Of course, they can be better, but AI isn't perfect. AI is incredibly overrated, and we believe that the true reason why any company would want to do this is cost incentive. And in my speech, I'll explain why cost incentive is going to be the doorstep that will lead to mass unemployment and big issues later in the long term. So basically, firstly, I'd like to give some rebuttals. We think that side proposition has made lots of mistakes. Price proposition assumes a couple of things. Firstly, they assume about productivity. They assume that people will do more advanced, more meaningful things if AI were to take their low-skill, repetitive jobs. But firstly, there's two easy responses to this. There's a reason why a very small minority of people don't do repetitive jobs such as jobs in industries, in factories, for example. Only a minority of people do jobs that are better than this, and that's because a lot of people in the status quo, such as in Thailand, still lack proper development, still lack proper education, and we believe that on our side, we're the side that actually going to give people the correct baseline in order to close the gap between middle class, lower income, and upper class. But I'll get onto that in my arguments later. And secondly, if you're going to say that people can start doing things that are meaningful and that they can actually enjoy because they've been liberated from their job, that's also wrong, because there's a reason why people do jobs, and it's because we need to make a living. We have bills to pay. We need to buy food. We need money. Just because, say AI were to elevate the economy into, hypothetically speaking, if AI were to improve the economy so much that we reach a level where the government can pay people subsidies, for example, then that could lead into even bigger problems of, for example, a society being divided into a class of people that get paid not to work and people that have get their tax money used on these people, right? And so basically, just because AI is taking over easy jobs doesn't mean that people have the freedom to do whatever they want. And so basically, you say that AI is here to integrate, not replace. Yes, obviously that's your ideal scenario. But the thing is, we already combated this twice in first speaker, and I'm going to restate it again. The two mechanisms we use to rebut this is money incentive and the word rise in emotion. And I also like to focus on money incentive in my arguments later. But basically, if looking at a company, looking from a company's perspective, right? A company wants to make money. If you in your dream scenario, you stated that you want to use AI in cooperation with people in positions, right? But if companies see that they don't if companies see that there's an AI alternative that they don't have to spend as much money on or pay or spend as much money employing, then why would they continue employing the people, right? We believe that this is the step that leads to unemployment, because if companies see that they can use AI instead, then why would they require people? And with the word rise in emotion, as the leader of opposition stated, then obviously AI will become more advanced, and this also leads into another assumption you've made, which is that your regulations will work. The thing is, we live in the status quo. We still don't really see any proper regulations on AI, and it's hard to believe that with how exponentially, how quickly exponentially AI is developing, it's hard to imagine how your regulations will be able to develop in order to prevent stuff such as job loss, for example, or an AI takeover, for example. And so basically, on our side, we have talked about both the principle of why someone would have to work, and now in my own speech, I'm going to expand more on my first speaker's points on environment and upscaling of employees. And
PI.
hold on, in a moment. And so. Sure.
Using your logic, if a person's jobs gets displaced by AI, wouldn't they find other jobs, other more productive jobs to ensure they can feed their families and feed themselves?
The thing is, again, that's a very optimistic scenario that isn't going to happen. Not everyone, only a minority of people can actually choose what they want to do, because a large majority of people still lack the baseline to be able to, lack education, lack the baseline to be able to do whatever they want, right? And so, and I'll get on to how our side is actually the side that is going to give that in my argument right now. So basically, Prime Minister earlier stated that AI is not, Prime Minister earlier stated that, talked about environment, right? Prime Minister stated that, not Prime Minister, Leader of Opposition stated that obviously AI will, in the future, AI will heavily impact the environment, because with the rise of AI, with the rise of more servers, for example, being produced, we cannot imagine how much energy, how much cooling, how much maintenance it will take to manage AI in the future, right? And so basically, our question is, why don't we spend this money that we're going to use on AI on developing humans instead? And that's what I want to talk about today. Why not upscale employees instead? I'd like to expand on my first speaker. On my speech, so specifically, I'd like to talk about long-term and short-term. We believe that the true way to actually enhance the economy, which is obviously the goal of both sides, is to bridge the gap between upper class companies and people in upper class and people in middle income, people in lower income, and people in entry level jobs. And I'll get onto that in a moment. And so basically, what we're trying to say is that increasing the broad quality of a population and increasing the standards of people that participate in the economy is the only way to improve the economy, right? Because for example, by spending the money that we would otherwise be spending on AI, and we spending it on education and on our people's development instead, we lead to more innovation. We lead to people with more innovation. We lead to more demand in the economy, and obviously we lead to stability. How do we lead to more demand in the economy? Well, obviously, if there are more people that are more educated, more people that have more opportunities to get high-paying jobs, then there's more demand in the market to buy things, right? As a matter of fact, having lots of AI is going to be a counter to this. Again, I mean, you guys say your optimism is that, we're going to be using, AI is going to replace people in easy jobs so that they can do meaningful things. But firstly, meaningful things how? Obviously everyone wants to do whatever they want, but they can't because we have jobs, right? If you don't have jobs, then you don't have food, and also you don't participate in the economy. And also, And so basically in the long term, and you may say, what incentive do governments have or big companies have to improve people instead of to improve people instead of AI? And the incentive, we've already seen the status quo, such as from developed countries such as Singapore or in Europe, that by developing, we can already see in the status quo that many countries are adopting to this method because it has proved to increase the baseline of economic productivity, and that's why we take the debate, both principally and practically, they've been proud to oppose.
I thank the second opposition for the speech. Next, I would like to invite the third prop to conclude proposition's case. Here.
Test. Okay. Opposition pushes a very unclear and uncharitable comparative when they told you that we have to defend a world where a conscious AI take over the workforce, but then they tell you that they can create a world where they'll just spend the money on the people. I think this is untrue and an unlikely manifestation of what already exists. And I'll prove then in my first point of clarification of what is comparative will likely look like. I think we told you multiple times what's the likely manifestation of AI. I think it's going to be regulated clearly, and I'll deal with that in classes later. But in a way, we told you already that in the vast majority of cases, it was augmented reality that we use to help and assist the world that we already have right now. Then even if so, the rise already exists for you to see right now. Like half the thing in this room are fully integrated with AI, yet we still not see these kind of conscious AI they want to defend at the end of the day, right? But I think on their fiat then, they are unable to defend the world where these kind of they can fiat a world where companies will then invest on people, because I think the likely comparative then is companies will likely invest things in technologies or even research and developments. I think it's unclear why these companies will train unskilled people for us at the end of the day, right? I'll put two clash point then. First on regulatory incentive, on why we get good regulation and effective implementation of AI, and second on unemployment and then the overall development of AI then. So first, in terms of regulatory incentive, the premise of this is that if we're able to prove that effective regulation exists, the majority of opposition harm is mitigated because policies are going to take out these kind of harm specifically and are able to implement in these things then. What these regulations look like then, I think we point out to things that already exist in the status quo. For example, the EU's AI Act earlier this year that is being implemented in terms of the regulation, whether it's human overseeing the AI automotive industry, or whether it's the act that require this percentage of human worker that exists, right? Why then does this regulatory incentive exist effectively? There's 4 reasons why this will be done well. One, I think there's a very high amount of political capital that are willing to be spent on this already, because awareness already exists for the average person to know that AI is integrated into your daily lives. So the thing that follows is a concern of what the future of AI is and how it is actually going to be this rise that the average person see, meaning that I think there's active incentive of things like politicians to integrate AI regulation into policy making and in parliaments insofar that it gains politically attractive from the people, because it is something that people concern, meaning I think there's likely voting blocks and a likely participation of the average citizen into the discussion of AI, especially those who are technocrats and those who know the matter of these technology and the investment of it at the end of the day, right? But the second reason under this is that AI industry are highly competitive at its best, and all big firms right now have checks and balances against each other that we told you if one fails to comply with things like regulation or act effectively, I think the other won't let it go and likely compete in every way possible to take that economic opportunities at the end of the day, right? But the third reason here is that we tell you that the people who face the highest risk from replacements of AI is actually those white-collar jobs, those professionals such as lawyer, analyst, consult, or your finance bro at the end of the day, right? This is the case because these are the ones that
that are being paid the most, but AI does the very same intellectual task much more efficient because it does not need to eat or it does not need to sleep. I think it's much more efficient then. This means that these people who are politically influential and have high social capital in terms of their very high status in work already within these kind of corporate jobs have an active incentive to demand AI regulation, meaning it exists an incentive to lobbies and then make good overall AI regulation because it's also these people jobs who are being risked of being replaced. It was these lawyers that matter to them and lives that matter
Point.
to them too. Before I go on, yes, I'll take a point.
Assuming whatever your optimism is true, what are you going to do when AI ruins the environment?
I think there's also active regulation for it, even though in the same EU's Act, there was a regulation saying in terms of whether the environmental harm exists and whether the usage of data exists. I think if we approve this regulation, it extends into the political capital, then we have the ability to regulate environmental issue, unemployment issue, or whatever issue they want to talk about then. But the last thing I want to note here is that there's instant backlash because we're already in the age of knowledge itself. I think class action lawsuits rise in days when unethical implementation of AI exists and will rise under our world. I think there's insane amount of checks and balances, whether it's democratic institution or private actors themselves, to make good use of AI and good implementation of it into the workforce then. Second issue then, I'll deal with the point of unemployment then, and then the overall economic benefit. I think the premise here is that the fact is humans are insanely flexible to adapt to new job and industry narrative. This looks like when the industrial revolution itself rise, manual labor like weaving or farming are replaced by machine, but people still shifts into jobs like engineering or logistics works, which before that doesn't exist, or people don't even know that these jobs was ever viable for them to do in the first place. Or it looks like when the internet was rising, it was expected to destroy aspects of like newspaper and then shopping and retails. But the thing is, online shopping still exists as a new industry and create jobs like digital marketing or app developer at the end of the day, right? We think a shift on narrative will exist on the rise of AI, especially when the AI right now is not conscious as they want to claim. We still need active people to do data labeling or actually oversee and the kind of the engineering of these kind of big data that exist, meaning I don't think it's true that would take out all people or most of the employment that exists then. So why then is this the same likely case for AI that people will adapt? There's three reasons here. One, I think when AI increase productivities, firms actually produce more good at a lower cost because they are more efficient at doing the same thing, because they do better research and development through AI. This means that there's a lower price. This translates to things like more demand from the consumer because now goods are cheaper for them to consume at the end of the day. This means then that businesses themselves and see the economic opportunities and opt in to diversify themselves into different sectors and the different aspect of the same businesses. For example, when ATM was expected to take out bank teller, but reality is like most bank teller are being hired more to help oversee other jobs because they are now more flexible and doesn't have to do the same repetitive work that exists. I think AI will do the same thing and take this kind of boring work out for people to do other creativities and other things that matters more and are more meaningful to people. And let's engage on their point of meaning of life then, because they tell you that work is the meaning of life for a lot of people and that's a pursuit that matters to people. I think still so, for the most vulnerable people, there is still things that matter much more than work and pursuit of work, because when they don't have food on the table, I think economic activities and economic productivities matter much more for them to have a roof over their head, over some kind of meaning over work, when they can find those meanings and doing other things in society or other things that they actually want to do then, or even find other job and another sector of job that will likely exist then. And I think the last thing to note here is that the impact of AI does not only limited to things like economic activities, but into things like in education access for the underprivileged or the underprivileged nation to have a chance to compete. For example, when the African Union skipped the entire line of telephones line and skip into things like the mobile phones already, because they have these technologies that are kind of dispersed and distributed into them in a very much faster rate, meaning I think overall the productivity and the overall human quality of life will get better when these workforce of AI is being implemented. I think for all of these reasons, proposition.
I thank the third proposition for the speech. Next, I would like to invite the third opposition to conclude today's debate. Here.
Last night, my mother just asked me how to use TikTok. Now, I'm very proud that I get to teach my mother how to use technology, but what about the unprivileged people? The people who didn't have the proper education to know how to even access the internet or even have access to a mobile phone. Their side of the house wants to claim that everyone is just not going to do boring jobs and do the high-skilled, the advanced jobs that require extensive knowledge of AI. Note here that in the status quo, there's like a large amount of the population who still don't know how to use the internet, but even if they have the internet, they don't know how to use it properly and safely, not even thinking about using it for and as a main pathway for employment. Their argument relies on a world of privilege. 3 strategic commentaries for side proposition. Firstly, even after 2 exchanges, they have failed to prove to us why humans will still be relevant. That is, they've told us that AI can just replace these very boring jobs. We've already told you that things like conveyor belts or computers can easily get the jobs done, but AI carries too much more risk than just replacing all of these humans. Secondly, is that my point about that the environment would be destroyed and ruined fully since LO hasn't been engaged at all. That means that at this point of this debate, even without my weighing at all, even if they achieve all of their benefits and their even if they mitigate all harms that we push, note here that the environment would not stand in their world, and we don't think that any of the impacts could materialize in a world where we just don't have an environment to live in with. Therefore, I think finally, my commentary is that this debate must be weighed on the scale of certainty. That is, we can only promise so much of the benefits and of the good things that we can see, but to win this debate, I think we have to be sure and certain on what can actually happen. So from all of that, 2 questions in this debate that I think you just have to answer. Firstly, how will the environment stand? And secondly, can humans still coexist with AI? My first clash, how would the environment stand? Note here that throughout the bench, there was no engagement on the point of AI that I have already told you about 3 things. First, it uses a lot of electricity that no amount of the human population can provide right now. Secondly, it uses that amount of water that people still don't have access to it. And finally, it uses rare earth materials that the process of mining it is actually already harmful. But at some point in time, you're going to run out of things like lithium, things like cobalt. And at that point in time, there is no way to continue the development of AI. Note here that there was no address about this point under their side of the house. So how do we win with these 2 materials? 2 reasons to this. Firstly, is that we think the environment is I think all of their benefits is contingent on having an environment to live with. That is, our point is analytically prior to them, which means that at that point in time, if there's no environment to live with, or if the environment is too much damaged, then it seems very risky to build AI data centers where it could easily flood, it could easily rain, or some earthquake could come and destroy your entire center. Which means that the fact that the moment you don't have an environment, all of their benefits of their investment just cannot happen. Second of all, is that assuming the worst harms of both sides, under their side of the house, people just produce less, people just have less productivity and get less money, and that might be bad. But under our side of the house, it's very certain that if you don't take care of the environment, it's certainly going to fail. That is, we're operating on a much larger likelihood and a much larger scale, which means that on all of these points, we think we've already won this debate on the clash of the environment. Now, I'll take a point before we move on.
The thing that destroys the environment the most is a consumerist and capitalistic narrative of human that will never change under your side of the house.
Yeah, I get it. But at least in the status quo, there are many regulations going against consumerism. There is so much pushback in the fact that we're debating in a sustainability expo. I think that's our point. But the problem is, with the rise of AI, we've already proven to you since the last 2 speakers that AI regulation is very iffy and could easily be lobbied by the government, which means that environmental regulations is rarely to get passed and rarely to be maintained properly to the extent that they are trying to claim. Now on to my second clash. Can humans still coexist with AI? What side proposition give us is that they're just going to regulate the AI and integrate it into the life. Know here that we've already proven you that this is not true. We told you that the people who own AI are the biggest companies like Oracle, like OpenAI, and they lobby the state too much that most of the regulations is very hard to come through this entire massive level of lobbying. But even if regulations get passed, we told you that humans are just going to replace anyway, because companies are just going to replace humans because it is cheaper. Imagine if you can hire AI engineers. Why would you have another human engineer going in if you already have to invest in the AI engineer and then pay the humans on top of it? It's very inefficient. So I think the realistic counterfactual is that it's either that you just pay to upskill the workers so that they can be even better than AI, or just hire AI fully without paying humans. We think that, of course, our world is much better. But furthermore, I think under their side of the house, they're just going to hurt humans more because things like SMEs and things like small companies, they cannot afford AI. The people on the ground cannot get easily access to AI and AI training. So it means that it's only about the richest of the rich that can get and exploit the true potential of AI. Now, 4 pieces of weighing on how do we win, and I'll just compare the words to make it clearer. The first is on principle. Note here that assuming their best case, that they get more productivity, we ask you one question. What does productivity even mean? If I'm an engineer and I solve a few of my engineering problems, I would feel that, okay, at least I put work into it. I studied 4 years to become an engineer, and I feel rewarded for that. Under their side of the house, that wouldn't mean nothing. So even if you can solve 10 times, 100 times more of these problems, it doesn't give you the same reward. It doesn't give you the same amount of dignity that you studied hard for it. And life, at that point in time, your life would have no meaning. I don't think any amount of productivity, whether 100 times or 1,000 times, could make up and take this debate, could take up this debate this late. Second point of how we win is on the magnitude of benefits. Note that under our side of the house, the counterfactual of training humans is very easy, because even if we don't fully train humans, at least they are bound to get some part of the benefits that we want to push through and train them. Note that under their side of the house, for all of the benefits to actually materialize, AI has to be at the top 100% of efficiency. Because if I tell you that I have an AI engineer, which is only efficient half of the time, and the other 50%, it might get it wrong. Now, any building could collapse any time. How do we have trust in the AI if it works only 50% of the time? Note here that under their side of the house, for AI and all of the materials to work, it must be fully efficient at 100%. We think that world is very unlikely. Third point of weighing is on scale. We tell you that the amount that unskilled labor cannot join, the SMEs cannot join. So the fact that if we train these people, there are so many more people who are willing to be trained and to get more money compared to their side of the world where there's only a very small amount of data and AI scientists. So we think we already win on scale here. And finally, it's about vulnerability. Note here that under their side of the house, AI only get reactive change. That is, even if they get full regulations, if AI makes a mistake, regulations cannot stop them from making a mistake. It can only fine the company or might punish the AI somehow, but it cannot stop the change proactively and stop change beforehand. That is, at some point in time, their AI, even though it's fully efficient, is going to make mistakes. People are going to die because of their hands, and there is no way to put accountability on it. Compared to our side of the world, where if we just have better humans working, then there's a lot of checks and balances to just put more one building. There's probably 1,000 engineers working on this one to ensure the safety of all people. So all of these points, we think we cannot just enforce and put AI into the life of the workforce. So proud to oppose.
Right, I thank the third opposition for the speech.ขอบคุณน้องๆสำหรับการโต้วาทีที่เข้มข้นและเต็มไปด้วยพลังนะครับสิ่งที่เราได้ฟังไปเมื่อสักครู่เป็นมากกว่าคำตอบตายตัวว่าเราควรต้อนรับ AI ในการทำงานไหมและเป็นมากกว่าผลแพ้ชนะว่ามุมมองไหนดีกว่ากันแต่เป็นการชวนให้คิดต่อให้มองปัญหาจากหลายมิติไม่ว่าจะเป็นเชิงสังคมเชิงหลักการหรือเชิงพาณิชย์ครับสุดท้ายนี้หากทุกท่านอยากร่วมสนับสนุนน้องๆ Thailand National Debate Team เพื่อให้มีโอกาสไปสร้างชื่อเสียงในเวทีระดับโลกเรามีเสื้อทีมรุ่นพิเศษจัดทำขึ้นรายได้ทั้งหมดนี้เราจะนำไปสนับสนุนกิจกรรมและการฝึกซ้อมของน้องๆครับทุกท่านสามารถ สแกน QR code ที่ลิงก์ไปที่ Instagram ของทีมได้เลย หรือว่าติดต่อด้านข้างเวทีได้ครับขอเสียงตบมือดังๆให้กับน้องๆอีกครั้งครับ
เอาละค่ะทุกท่านค่ะปรบมือให้กับนักโตวาทีทีมชาติและผู้จัดการทีมด้วยนะคะน้องๆแล้วก็พี่ทัศน์เดี๋ยวขออนุญาตเหมือนเดิมเลยค่ะถ่ายภาพด้วยกันวันนี้นะคะสำหรับทั้ง 6 ท่านนี่เป็นอีกหัวข้อเรื่องของ AI นะคะวันพรุ่งนี้เป็นวันสุดท้ายแล้วของเขาที่จะมาดีเบตเรื่อง sustainability กันขอเชิญโค้ชแปลตามาสวัสดีค่ะทุกท่านคะนี่เป็น non-profit organization หมายถึงว่าน้องๆเขามีทุนของตัวเองด้วยแล้วก็ในการจำหน่ายเสื้อเพื่อทำเรียกว่ามีบัดเจ็ตไปแข่งขันเองที่เคนยากลางปีหน้าสำหรับใครอยากจะช่วยซัพพอร์ตตรงนี้นะคะเสื้อสีขาวแล้วก็ดำเหมือนที่น้องชามใส่อยู่มีจำหน่ายที่นี่รวมถึงติดตามได้ใน Instagram ก็สามารถซื้อได้เช่นกันแต่ถ้าเกิดใครสะดวกวันนี้นะคะน้องๆเขาออกมาด้วยนะคะวันนี้มีโค้ชแพรวตาซึ่งเป็นน้องแพรวเป็นหนึ่งในโค้ชนะคะที่สอนโค้ชเมนทอริ่งน้องๆทุกๆขั้นตอนและเดี๋ยวเขาจะมีประกวดที่เตียวดมด้วยนะคะกลางเดือนหน้าปรบมืออีกครั้งกับทุกท่านเลย Thailand National Debate Team